What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York, and on the phone we got Daniel from Ages. Thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. The newest album is Uncrowned, which is scheduled to come out later in the summer. What I was curious is, like how the making of this record was. Was there like a preconceived idea on how you wanted this to sound, or was there like a lot of improvising involved?
I think we had a pretty good idea of what we wanted this album to sound like because I felt like we were on the right track even with the first album, and this was basically a continuation of that and a just expanding on some ideas and I guess expanding on the soundscape and the whole production process. It was all pretty much laid out and played in sight for us as soon as we released the Malefic Miasma 5 years ago, which is crazy a long time ago. But
yeah, that's why I asked it. Being that the Malefic Miasma came out in 2015, I mean, is Uncrowned almost kind of like the direct sequel to it? I guess was the best way to ask it.
Yeah. You could say that. That's a pretty good description. I think we knew what we wanted to do, and we just we had the same ideas of tonal language and the whole that atmospheric melodic black metal approach that we same kind of music we always wrote and always enjoyed listening to, and we just expanded on that. I would maybe Uncrowned is a little more how should I describe it? A little more gloomy, maybe a little more cold ish, and not as grandiose at parts. But it goes a little bit of a roller coaster ride between these two extremes of being bombastic and being more toned down, and so it's kind of more of the same, but with a little twist. But I think people will definitely recognize themselves and recognize our sound and our there's no mistake that it's Ages.
Yeah, could the singles that you released off of it, such as the Illicit State, almost like serve as a clear representation of what this album is going to sound like?
Yes, I think so. There are, of course, some. More so, I would say, "Burn Them," the first single, might be a little more representative of the album as a whole. But there's all we're touching different moods and emotions. So, but yeah, those pretty much a little more some acoustic stuff will be thrown in there, a little more maybe epic stuff also. So, but it's a good guideline. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think it's fair to say, like, you do try to stick with a certain sound, or is there do you try to experiment and incorporate many different sounds into Ages?
I think we are pretty narrow-minded in that sense. We have a very specific idea and like a very small ballpark of what we ourselves believe to be the Ages sound, so to speak. So it's kind of clear to us when we're writing music. With me and Andreas is sitting in the studio, we basically just have to give a glance over the show. If I'm writing something, I just give Andreas a glance over my shoulder, and I will instantly we'll just at the same time we'll just nod or shake our heads. It's like that's not fitting, or that's perfect. So it's an unspoken, I think, that we have that we're both in agreement of. So it's I don't know if I answered your question. But
no, you definitely did. Is there ever a time where like lyrics or a concept can maybe like determine how the outcome of the music will be, or are lyrics always just kind of like the last thing that are put into place?
Lyrics are always the last thing, but depending on the song, some types of lyrics might be more fitting. So, and it's kind of tricky to make where that's the same thing with the lyrics. Writing this kind of music, you're kind of tied down to a small, not small, but a kind of limited vocabulary. So you have to make sure that everything is up to par and feel you get the right feel from, and not be too much like mumbo jumbo. You have to. There has to be sure a lot of metaphors, a lot of um, you know. Big words, etc. But it's all it should still come across, like the message should still come across and be clear. So, but yes, the lyrics comes last, and so the music always determines what the lyrics should be like.
Okay, and I'd imagine you're trying to keep it open to interpretation, or is the goal to maybe kind of like engage the listeners into what Ages is singing about?
I mean, it's not. If one would read the lyrics, I think it should be hear what we're trying to convey most of the time. So I don't think there is a lot of interpretation, but sure, as I said, a lot of metaphors and rotten things in veiled, conundrums ways. But it's still. Message is pretty clear, and it's should come across to anyone who sits down and reads the lyrics. So
Yeah, and I mean, when you say that there's like many different moods that are incorporated in the album, is it almost like a reflection of what you were feeling at that particular time in a way, or did you kind of like is music more or less kind of like an escape, and you're just portraying somebody else's emotion?
No, I would say it's more of what you're feeling at that moment. So what you said is pretty spot on. It's like you have we're in cold Sweden here, so when we have dark winter nights, it's very good. Channeling a lot of good black metal riffs. So it's not really, you can't really write good black metal riffs sitting in the summer sun. So you have to submerge yourself into these moods, and that's pretty pretty effective doing this.
I'm gonna have to disagree because New York City is blazing hot right now. We have an awesome black metal scene here, and that's because we feel like we're burning in the fires of hell over here.
Oh, okay. Well, you can put it that way, I guess. I guess that works too.
Yeah. Well, like, what's funny is like in order to get like inspired to write music, especially because it was 5 years between this album and the last one. Do you almost need to like put yourself in a certain element in order for like ideas to come through, or do ideas just come out of nowhere sometimes?
Well, ideas do come out of nowhere. I think sometimes you have to look at it almost as a job. Like you really have to just. I'm now gonna sit here on my ass. I have to do something, and it might take 6 hours, and I might get nothing out of it. But I have to just sit down and work, basically. So, and that all works because that kind of puts you in that right mindset and mood. Eventually, you're gonna, if you can work undisturbed, you're gonna find your way. You're gonna dig yourself down there into that specific mood that you need to be. So that's a pretty effective way. But since the album took 5 years, but we haven't. It's not like we have been waiting for our muse for 5 years to complete the album. I think we started writing this pretty much right after the Malefic Miasma was out, and we had a lot of ideas lying around, and the groundwork for a lot of the songs were written pretty fast and but over the course of a long time. So the thing that took most time, I think, was just the finishing touches and the devil's in the details. So we spent a lot of time just nitpicking and getting all the things right. But I would say the groundwork was mostly done. It's fairly quickly done. But I think we're just very nitpicky, and that's what's took us so long. And also, procrastinating in life in general. But had we wanted to, I think we. If someone would have paid us, we could have probably finished this album a little sooner. But
So, or what we hearing? Obviously, what we're hearing on this album. This is obviously 5 years. It's not like are what we hearing maybe like the first initial take, like the way that these songs were originally written, or did these songs change a lot over a long span of time?
That's a good question. Yeah, some of the songs really changed. We had, I know, even for the Malefic Miasma, it was the same thing. That's what happens. You write a song and you just you think you're done, and a couple of weeks pass, and you go back into the studio and you listen to it like and it doesn't really feel right, and there's just there's something about it, and it just doesn't sit right with you. So you have to just go back to the drawing board basically, and just okay. So how do we salvage this? It feels like, and then you start rewriting, you start rearranging, you cut things out, you put things new in, and suddenly it's like, oh, okay, we're getting somewhere. And yeah, so there a lot of the songs have been redone and rewritten and rearranged, probably more than a couple of times before they're really. So I mean, some songs write themselves. They just that's we got it's 5 minutes of perfection right there. But a lot of them are also, it takes a lot of time to rewrite and rearrange. So.
Mm-hmm. Do you find it like, and I'm not sure if this is even a goal or something that you try to accomplish with Aegis, but like, do you find it maybe like the longer that you're working on something, the harder it is to kind of capture that moment or that representation of who you particularly are?
Yeah, sometimes. It depends a little bit on the song and how it came to be. If it was something that me and Andreas, for example, wrote together from start to finish, then that's a little bit of a shared process that doesn't necessarily wasn't necessarily tied to a specific moment and mood and setting. But if it's something that I just in the whim on a whim just wrote by myself, or Andreas by himself, then yeah, there are some things that are very particular and tied to I know, for example, I think the intro for the Minionism, for example, on this on Uncrowned was very like delicately written by Andreas in his home, and then we tried to recreate that in the studio and get it perfect and really fiddle around with the sounds to make it right. But it was really hard to capture that spontaneous emotion that he did on his like scratch recording that he did. So sometimes things like that are kind of hard to translate into a full production. So it's sometimes you just have to keep old crappy recordings.
Well, I've always thought that like obviously you need a studio to like record and write the music and stuff, but I always thought that like a studio is sort of like a massive disconnect because everybody's tracking their parts individually and everybody's like you have to do multiple takes of this and you're in a vocal booth in isolation. It almost like, do you find it like maybe easier to play music when you're in the company of your band versus when you're just like alone in the studio?
Well, I mean, I've been in rehearsing bands, for a big part of my life, but since Aegis is not a rehearsing band to begin with, we never started out that way. We started out, it's a studio band, so to speak, and so our process of writing and playing together is a little different. So it's never really been a hindrance or cumbersome to us in terms of writing. I think we have just settled for a different type of workflow. I mean, I do appreciate being with other musicians in a room and playing together and bouncing ideas off of each other, but that's also kind of ineffective in a way because there are so many wills and there is so many I screwed that up, let's take that again and from the top, or hey, and people making, I don't know, it's just pretty tedious and slow process also. This way we can very easily, when we're working in the studio, basically, I don't know, not rehearsing, but we're writing in the studio creating stuff from the scratch, and as you put them to tape, you can super quickly hear if this is something to take go forward with, or if we should just scrap this idea and do something else, because you get the full arrangement fairly quickly, and it's it's very rewarding, I would say. I enjoy working like that, and it's also me and Andreas writing everything, so we don't have, it's just two wheels, and that's super convenient.
Yeah, I don't know how Slipknot writes a record with 9 members.
Yeah, nope. It's got to be someone has to be the main decision making guy.
Yeah, no wonder they beat each other up on stage so much. How do you know when a song is done? The most difficult question.
Oh, yeah, that's hard. I think I know we worked on these songs. There were things I felt were lacking up until the very last minute when we mixed these. When the mixing process was basically done, and I know I put stuff in there at last minute, like this riff or this part needs something more. It doesn't really shine when it's as it is now. So maybe just some tiny guitar part, or some keyboards in the background, or some orchestral thing, or just something to bring it out a little more. And so it's really hard to say. I think you feel it when you feel it. But it can be up until last minute, actually, like right before. Luckily, we do everything ourselves, so it's not like we're tied to some other person's studio time. So we don't have to email someone, hey, I did this extra little keyboard part, can you put it in there? Final mix, it's got to go out tomorrow. So we're a little more dynamic, and we can
Lucked out on that part.
Yeah.
Yep. And the final question I wanted to ask you, and I know that my listeners are so sick of me asking this, but really, with the Swedish metal scene right now, like, are you guys currently, like, from the scenes in Goth, like, are you guys, like, affiliated with, like, the Gothenburg scene with, like, the Dark Tranquility and In Flames or whatever, or, like, were you going more towards Norway? Like, was there kind of, like, a scene, especially nowadays, that Aegis is kind of working with?
That's a good question. I mean, Aegis, we have our little conglomerate of metal scene up here, and we live in the middle of Sweden, so we have some black metal from the 90s that we have, Arcanum, we have Sorin, and there are a bunch of bands from around here. But the Gothenburg scene is not really our. I mean, I grew up listening to Dark Tranquility and In Flames, obviously. They're always been around, but it's nothing that we are. It's not a hangout. We don't, and it's not really the kind of music that we are that we feel a bigger connection with. It's more the Norwegian stuff, I would say, than if I had to, make it. Try to make a connection there, but
yeah, you guys have a really great bridge between, I would say, black metal and death metal. I feel like, which I never understood how one could appreciate one and dislike the other. I think I think I'm just showing how young apparently I am. I'm 26, so but I've always thought that you guys have like a nice sort of like bridge between the two genres.
Oh, okay, well, that's good. No, I think that we are more connected. So with Sweden had a pretty thriving melodic black metal scene in the late 90s with the Section albums and Dawn and a band called Vinterland. There are some real super melodic black metal bands that we really enjoyed, and that's kind of the sound that we're trying to carry onwards and evolve a little bit, so to speak, because it was all in their cradle and those bands died off, but they had some really good melodic black metal in a different. I would say it sounds a little different than the Norwegian scene. Maybe it's not really comparable to Emperor or early Satyricon or stuff like that. But it's more in the vein of what we're doing right now. So I think that's what we hail back to a little bit, but with a more our own touch and modern touch. So it's more of a Swedish. That I'm not sure where exactly those bands came from, but actually might have been Gothenburg, some of them. But yeah, I'm not gonna, you know.
Yeah. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today. I really enjoyed this chat. Is there just anything with Ages that you would like to promote? Obviously, so even if there was no pandemic happening right now, you guys wouldn't take this to the live presence at all?
No, not as it is today. So yeah, the pandemic doesn't really affect us, fortunately. I mean, I feel super bad for all the other bands and artists that are suffering right now. But for Ages, since this is a studio project, we've only just kept it that way. I'm not ruling out the possibility of taking this to the live stage. I really love performing live, and it's a great way to connect with people. And also, this kind of music is, what I have. It's always something that speaks to me pretty deeply. So I think I would really enjoy putting it on stage. But as for now, we have to. Well, everyone has to postpone any plans of playing live at this point. But for Ages, we'll take it a little slowly, and maybe, hopefully, one day we'll get it to stage. But me and Andreas really love just doing this in the studio also, and it's a great way to express yourself and get things. It's a pretty effective way of working, and hopefully the next album is not going to take 5 years,
Yeah.
but I don't think so. But for now, I mean, yeah, Uncrowned is out on August 21st, and so please just take a listen or pre-order it. We have a pretty cool golden vinyl limited edition if anyone is interested in holding something physical in your hands.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Everybody, we are here with Ages. Be sure to pick up Uncrowned, coming out August 21st. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We will see you next time.